I know the why have you not given me?
On July 22nd, 2025, officers at Nashville International Airport in Airport, Tennessee responded to a Southwest Airlines gate where a passenger lay on the floor of a busy concourse, refusing repeated requests to get up. And what started as a welfare and conduct call would escalate into 4 criminal charges. This footage was obtained through a public records request, and every party's conduct will be analyzed and graded against the law. An officer makes initial contact. At this point, the encounter is a consensual, community-creating interaction in a public place, requiring no warrant or probable cause. The passenger presents identification and cites extensive travel. The officer explains that lying in the middle of an active concourse is a tripping hazard that blocks the flow of travelers. The passenger insists others can simply walk around her, but the obstruction is becoming a legal problem.
Ready, ma'am. Hey, how you doing? So,
Yeah, hi. So I was,
okay. Yeah, what's happening?
No, yeah. I will tell you before they do.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking to you.
I've been late for however many hours.
Okay.
I'm laying here.
Okay.
Look.
I see.
Watch, I'll show you.
No, you don't need to demonstrate, ma'am. Ma'am, why don't you get up for me? All right, ma'am, can you stand up?
No. I know I can get up, but I'm going to show you.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah, what I'm doing. Here is 2 passports. Different countries.
Okay.
Because I have traveled.
Okay. So where are you flying?
I'm going to. Oh, hold on. You hang out with my 4-month-old granddaughter. Or sorry, no, I'm not all that old.
It's all right. We just need. That's fine.
So here's my New Zealand passport. Here's my Canadian passport.
Okay.
Here's my New Zealand driver license. I've traveled over 100 bajillion traveling times.
Okay.
And laid on the floor.
Okay.
I get, no, sorry. I get that it's a public risk, but look, my flight is not to arrive until,
Okay.
8:38 in the afternoon.
Okay.
That
So,
will not arrive at
ma'am.
8:08 or 9:36. So sorry, I can't just hang out on the floor.
no, unfortunately, you
Because
can't just.
all of the other things.
No, you can sit down and
So
see.
every single time I've been to the airport, several times before, where I've laid on the floor, it's never been a problem.
Okay, right. So you're
But
laying in the
until
middle of the floor right here, right now, in front of everyone. So let's.
The middle? This is the middle.
But don't you see that there's a gate right there, ma'am?
No. That's the middle.
Can I ask you once? All right.
No.
Let's calm down.
Is the
All
middle.
right, ma'am. Don't you think that gate right there, right there in the middle, people can trip over you?
And so you don't know how to walk around me?
Yeah, but what happens?
So
if
you're
they think-
telling me everyone's...
That's-
No, sorry. Is that what you're saying? Because people can't watch me walk around them? So I can lay right here, like this. First time ever.
Hey, so what's wrong?
The night boarding, the more his behavior continues, the more I don't even want to rebook her. I was going to rebook her tomorrow, but she won't even send me. So at this point, what do you think? Just cancel it? Yeah.
Wait for my flight. She can delay for 3 hours.
Well, I can smell a little bit of alcohol in you.
It doesn't matter if you smell. I haven't gotten gaseous sleep. I can't I can't drop.
Well, where were you
Right
drinking?
there.
I was hanging out. We're just hanging
Right
outside.
over there.
3 casts?
One drink.
One drink? Did you have
So
any
you can-
drinks before you came?
No, one drink.
Okay.
So the funny thing is I am literally more self-aware than you are. No matter how many drugs I am.
Are you on any other drugs?
Yeah.
Well, you know, I don't know if you're just upset because of the flying.
No, I'm just upset with the fact that I'm enjoying myself. Where I have been several times flying out of this country, which
Are you Canadian?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Italian.
and I'm good. So you don't want to be here?
No, I like it here. I like it here.
Because you have to.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah,
She wasn't
but
on boarding?
anyways,
Yeah, so.
Okay.
it's even
The officer notes the odor of alcohol and asks about drinking. The passenger admits she has been drinking and repeatedly claims she is smarter and more self-aware than the staff and officers standing around her. By now, the contact is no longer voluntary. Under Terry versus Ohio, an officer may briefly detain a person on reasonable suspicion, and here the odor of alcohol, the obstruction, and her behavior quickly build that into probable cause. Under Tennessee Code Section 39, 17, 310, public intoxication applies, when a person is impaired in public to a degree that endangers themselves or others, or unreasonably annoys the people nearby. For concentration at airline staff advise that her flight is being canceled because of her behavior. As a private carrier, the airline may lawfully deny boarding, and the officer offers to help sort out a refund if she will simply cooperate. The officer asks her again and again to gather her belongings and move along. These repeated, measured requests are textbook de-escalation, giving the passenger every chance to resolve the situation on her own. His warnings turn explicit. She has been denied boarding, can be escorted to the non-secure side or to a hospital, and will be taken into custody if she refuses. That pattern of warning and renewed warning is what reviewers expect. It is worth noting that her profanity toward officers is, by itself, protected speech under the First Amendment. The charges here do not rest on what she says, but on her conduct. The obstruction, the intoxication, and the resistance. She keeps refusing and begins cursing while still on the floor. Under Tennessee Code, Sections 39, 17, 3, 305, disorderly conduct includes creating a hazardous or offensive condition with no legitimate purpose. When she still will not move, officers go hands-on. She pulls away, threatens to kick an officer, claims she is stronger, and is warned not to bite. The resistance has now crossed into resisting arrest and assault on an officer.
Look right here.
Physical and mental health. Oh, good. So you study that stuff.
Yeah. I
Okay.
literally am smarter than every person here.
Okay, so look.
Laying here.
I got it. So let me
It's, I
explain
get
something
it's a
to you.
safety risk. If there are people here,
It's not
no.
even that. Listen. So, because they are a private business and they can deny anybody boarding, so they actually
Yeah, but the
denied
thing
you
is
boarding.
they came to me. If I lay here, watch. You wanna watch me? Watch. You see? Watch. Let me try to watch. And then that one comes up to me. You're not allowed to sit here.
Well, look,
This,
do
I
me a
literally-
favor. Let's put your stuff together.
No, look at this.
I understand.
Look, look. I've literally flown to Thailand. I've flown to everywhere else in the goddamn world, and I've never been in trouble.
So-
on like this.
So just a little update, right? Your flight's been canceled due to the way you've been acting.
I
That's
don't care if it has.
okay.
Because
So
they are going to reimburse me, and I don't care.
okay, yep, we can get that figured out.
It
But
doesn't matter actually, because on the plus side, my sister was going to pick me up. She has a 4-month-old baby. Because you guys think I'm or whatever the think that. I was going to watch my 4-month-old baby, or sister's baby.
Or they deny it.
they canceled.
No,
Okay, they'll give you a refund.
I will sue if I have to.
That's fine, but I need you to listen to me, because the last thing I want to happen.
There.
Listen to me. The last thing I want to happen is for us to have to say,
You can send me to jail or not, because I will turn around and say, my fat ass right here
Okay,
was
ma'am,
sitting
let's
there.
listen.
Listen, we don't want to do that. So they denied you boarding. At this point, we have to escort you to the non-secure
That's
side.
fine.
If you can show me that
That's
you can
fine.
walk straight and take care of yourself, you can
Grab your items.
Hey,
Ma'am, grab your items.
man, go
I
ahead
will
and...
literally recite everything. I will speak Spanish, English,
That's fine,
Portuguese,
but I don't want to get you for
sign
disorderly
language.
either.
Hello,
Ma'am,
welcome.
ma'am, I don't want to get you for disorderly either, because right now we're blocking the flow
Do
of
you
business.
want me?
You're going to have
take
to
that.
carry your
No.
own stuff, ma'am.
No.
Ma'am, you're going to
No.
have to carry your own
If
stuff.
you're
We
taking
can't
me
carry-
away, you take that.
Ma'am, you're going to have to
Hi,
carry your
would
own
you like to
stuff.
put this in your car? Because apparently you're escorting
Ma'am.
me and making
Ma'am,
me
look.
carry all
Ma'am,
my shit,
I'm gonna,
even though I am fine.
I asked you
I
to
will
pick up your stuff. Now
Yeah.
I'm telling you to pick up your stuff. If
Yeah.
you don't pick up your stuff and walk with us to the non-secure side, I'm going to have to take you into custody. It's the last thing I want to
Go
do.
for it.
Is that what you want?
Go for it.
For disorderly
I'm
conduct
completely
and public intoxication, because you're acting like you're showing signs of being intoxicated.
So I'm intoxicated, yet I'm having a physical and mental conversation. Give me anything.
Man, please pick up your stuff. I'm trying to help you out. Pick up your stuff. Let's walk into the non-secure.
Tell that mother
You can put
for me laying here
you can put
on my
a complaint.
fat ass.
You're cursing.
You
You're
loud.
being disorderly right now. I'm not going to tell you.
There you go.
literally sitting here.
Ma'am, I'm not going to say you pick up your stuff, walk with us to the non-secure side. If not, you're going to go into custody, and I do not want to do that.
And you know what?
I understand that, but I'm trying to help you out. You may care later.
No, I don't. I hate this country.
Ma'am.
Canadian, New Zealand, I heard.
Are we leaving?
Are we?
If you can get your stuff together.
Well, I mean, I've been able to get my stuff together for a while, but...
Well, show me you can get
the
your
fact
stuff
that
together.
I'm intoxicated and...
Well, at this point, it's disorderly.
No, well,
So-
that's just me being
Come on, man.
shitty because you...
Pick up your items. We can walk and talk. Okay,
well, you gotta pick up your bags and keep walking.
I get it. Do you think I'm... Stop
we're not gonna say
treating me
your name.
like I'm...
an adult.
And start walking.
Treat me like an adult. No.
Put your hands in the back.
They are arresting me.
It's okay.
You can't. You know what? I could break out.
Let us double lock your cuffs so they don't get tight.
I don't care if you get tight. It's not going to hurt anyways because you work in an airport. No. That owes me and I will never fly again.
I don't care if you don't fly again or not.
Yeah,
We're just
and I
going
don't care either.
It's fine. Face this
That I
wallet.
did not do.
Relax.
No, let me out of the airport. I would rather be...
Stop resisting.
I would rather be out of the airport
Stop resisting.
than in here fighting. I'm stronger than you.
Relax.
Kick you in the balls.
Stop resisting.
Do not put me behind doors for
Stop
no reason.
resisting.
When all I wanted to do was go watch my 4-month-old.
Oh, 11. We're still 10-15 here. She's
Give me!
20. Don't bite me.
Then give me my phone to call my boyfriend. Then give me my phone to call.
Relax.
I have rights.
Relax.
Give me my phone. No.
Relax.
No, because you were supposed to give me my rights forever ago. I'm not even an American and I know the rights.
Stop kicking.
Yeah, then why have I not had any rights?
You have rights.
Listen, God, then why have you not given them to me?
I got it right.
Why are three of you actually...
She keeps having to resistant. Go ahead and get this. We're going to walk
You
her.
realize if you weren't I would probably not resist.
Stop.
No.
I'm trying to help you out. Over here.
Tennessee Code. Section 39:16. 602 prohibits using force to prevent a lawful arrest. The moment she physically pulls against the officers, the resisting arrest charge is supported by what the camera records. Her threats and the attempted bite raise the stakes further. Under Tennessee Code Section 39:13.102. An assault against a first responder is treated as an aggravated offense carrying enhanced penalties. Now restrained, she demands her phone and insists her rights are being violated. But there is no requirement to read Miranda warnings at the moment of arrest. Under Miranda versus Arizona, they proceed custodial. The reasonableness of the force is judged under Graham versus Connor, which views it from a reasonable officer's perspective, weighing the offense, the threat, and the active resistance against the level of force actually used. Here, that force stays low on the continuum. Officers apply leg restraints and offer to remove them if she walks on her own, relying on control, holds rather than strikes or weapons, even as her conduct keeps getting worse. Eventually, the situation stabilizes. An officer confirms she is able to stand. Across a long and volatile encounter, the officers never escalated to strikes or weapons, controlling her with verbal direction and restraint alone. According to public reporting, the passenger was charged with public intoxication, disorderly conduct resisting arrest, and assault on an officer as a felony. The airline declined a separate charge, and the case remained.
Over here.
If you weren't trying to help me, you would be you talking to me?
I'm going to try it, okay?
Then how? If you're gonna try, why didn't you try from the very beginning where I was just...
Go.
Where is my phone call to my boyfriend? No! You want to call my boyfriend?
No.
So now you're treating me with respect, but you won't call my boyfriend.
All right, somebody go to that side. Let me get my hand in it.
Do you really think that's what you want to do? Let go! And let me in! You want to...
There you go.
Do not!
Hey, how about restraint?
Let go of me! Because this hurts and I've done nothing
Just from my
wrong.
office.
I don't care and you hurt me this entire time.
How about restraint?
Let me know your name!
Stop kicking, sir, on the team. Stop
You want to do that? You want to do that? For nothing! I've done nothing! Hey, breathe! See your name? Breathe? And that's Yana? Go for it! Go for it! Yeah, is this really what you were to do, even though I'm not in trouble?
Well, there you are, huh?
Oh, because Americans are right? No matter what, Americans are right? Hey, you gonna call my person?
All right, you got it.
I have every right to have a phone number call.
Yeah, let's go.
Get it out of your pocket.
We're gonna take you inside.
Stop. I'm not going to do anything. Let me
Okay.
call my boyfriend.
We will. We're gonna take you inside
right here.
so you can call your boyfriend.
Right here. I want to call. No.
Your seatbelt off. Okay.
No,
Can
I
take
don't
these
have my
off of you?
seatbelt off. It's right here, you ass.
That's fine.
Stop. Both
Can
of
we
you.
help you?
Can you both shut up for one moment, please?
What do you need to say?
Stop. I literally practice radical honesty
Okay.
and everything in my life. I do not lie. I do not do anything.
Okay.
I do not whatever. The only reason I'm fighting you is because I was not in the wrong.
Okay.
I literally just laid there. Someone said, "Hey, can you not lay there?" And I said, "Bro, I've literally laid here every single
trying
time
to
I come."
get you through this
yes,
as fast
but
as we
look,
can.
you treat me with
We are.
respect?
So can I get these off your feet so you can
Yes.
walk on your own? Okay.
Can you
so
please take this
sit
off
back.
or do
We will.
something?
Put your legs straight out.
I will not fight
Okay.
you.
Don't kick.
I want to call my boyfriend.
I got your phone. Once we get you out,
And
stand
my
around.
husband, because I literally have both. And I will tell you that later if you want to know.
Which one was in the army? Husband or boyfriend?
Boyfriend.
Okay.
The husband is New Zealand
Gotcha.
because I lived in New Zealand for 12 years. Okay. But I have a husband
Come
and a
out.
boyfriend, and I literally will
come
do.
out.
Literally.
You able to stand up good?
Yes.
Okay. I just don't want you phone. That's all.
The woman was charged with public intoxication.
The responding officers earn a B+. They had lawful grounds, warned her repeatedly, and offered multiple off-ramps before any contact, keeping their force limited to control holds and restraints rather than strikes or weapons. The main critique is how long the standoff ran, which delayed a needed medical check. The passenger earns a D. She had a right to be there, but no right to block the concourse, defy lawful orders, or threaten the officer. Every escalation was her own choice, and the grade is not lower only because no blows landed and impairment offers some context. A minor fixable moment became 4 criminal charges entirely through her own behavior. The first lesson for travelers is simple. A private airline can lawfully deny boarding, and a crowded terminal is not the place to fight that call. Comply first, then dispute the refund or rebooking through the airline afterward. The second lesson concerns rights. Cursing at an officer is protect speech, but obstruction, public intoxication, and physical resistance are not. A disagreement belongs in a courtroom, never in a struggle on the terminal floor. The final lesson is the clearest. Every warning an officer gives is an off-ramp. Intoxication may explain a poor decision, but it is never a legal defense, and refusing each chance to comply is what turns a small problem in incest charges. If there is an interaction or legal topic you would like analyzed, leave it in the comments below. Please, this breakdown was informative. Just like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.